Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hello Word. I'm your host, Alex, and I'm thrilled to have you join me today. In each episode, we explore a new English word, helping you expand your vocabulary and improve your understanding of the language. Today, our word of the day is disaster. So, what exactly is a disaster? Well, in simple terms, a disaster is a sudden event, like an accident or a natural catastrophe, that causes great damage or suffering. It's a big bad event, as you might say. It's important to remember that a disaster is usually something very serious. Now, let's look at some synonyms, words that have similar meanings. A good synonym for disaster is catastrophe. For example, the earthquake was a major catastrophe for the region. Another synonym is calamity. We could say, the financial crisis was a calamity for many families. A third synonym is tragedy. You might hear, the plane crash was a terrible tragedy. And finally, let's consider the word misfortune. Losing his job was a real misfortune for him. Remember, while these words are similar, they can have slightly different nuances. A catastrophe often refers to large-scale natural events. A calamity often refers to events bringing widespread hardship. A tragedy usually involves loss of life, and a misfortune can refer to a personal but significant setback. Now, let's talk about antonyms, words that have opposite meanings. An antonym for disaster is success. For example, instead of saying the project was a disaster, we could say the project was a great success. Another antonym could be triumph. We might say the team's victory was a triumph over adversity instead of saying their efforts ended in disaster. Another antonym is blessing. Instead of saying the flood was a disaster, we might say, in a contrasting context, the rain was a blessing for the farmers. Finally, we can also consider fortune as an antonym. Instead of he faced a disaster when his business failed, we could say he had good fortune in his new venture. So, how do we use disaster in everyday life? Well, you might say, my cooking was a complete disaster. If you burnt dinner. Or, if you failed an exam, you might say, the exam was a disaster for me. You might also hear common expressions like avoid a disaster, which means to prevent something bad from happening. Here are some more example sentences to help you understand how to use disaster correctly. The oil spill was an environmental disaster. The hurricane caused widespread disaster along the coast. The fire was a major disaster for the small town. It was a complete disaster when the power went out during the wedding. They worked tirelessly to provide aid after the disaster. The government declared a state of disaster following the earthquake. Thankfully, a disaster was averted by the quick thinking of the pilot. The economic impact of the disaster will be felt for years to come. Her attempt to bake a cake was a culinary disaster. The traffic jam was a complete disaster, and I was late for my meeting. The party was a complete disaster, nobody came. The play was a disaster, the actors forgot their lines. Missing the flight was a disaster, but I was able to book another. The meeting was a disaster. Nothing was accomplished. The weather was a disaster for the beach vacation. The news of the job loss was a disaster for the family. His last performance was a disaster, and he lost the game. So, to recap, a disaster is a sudden event causing great damage or suffering. We learned some synonyms like catastrophe, calamity, tragedy, and misfortune, and some antonyms like success, triumph, blessing, and fortune. We also looked at how disaster is used in everyday conversations and common expressions. Thank you for joining me on Hello Word today. I hope you found this episode helpful. Before you go, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your support helps others find the show and continue learning English. Finally, I encourage you to create your own sentence using the word disaster and share it as a comment under this video. I'm looking forward to read them. I'll see you in the next episode of Hello Word.